And welcome in to the latest edition of the New England Hockey Journal's Rinkwise podcast. I am Evan Marinovsky. That is Patrick Donnelly. Patrick, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be back on the mic. Feels like it's been a while.
It has. It's been a weird. There was a parent who listens to our podcast, who I met out at a rink over the weekend, and they were like, "When's the next one coming out?" And I'm like, "It's coming soon. It's just a weird time. Holidays kind of
It,
mess things up, and then like early
yeah,
January is weird."
I feel like we talked about it too, where like the way the holidays fell this year were so weird. Like holiday tournaments was right up against Christmas, and it was a really crazy time. And then, just the way breaks fell, it's weird getting the schedule back into it because like boys was in full swing 2 weekends ago, but girls didn't back into it until this past weekend. It's a weird year. One of the coaches I was talking to too, like echoed like it was really weird timing with holiday tournaments. But now we're back to normal.
Now we're back. Thankfully, I'm happy. It's like I'm putting together top performers for this week, and like every team played at least 2 or 3 games, and MIAA, everybody's fully back. So we're good. We're back. It's normal. This will come out usually every Wednesday. We record these every Tuesday. Gotta say also fun weekend. You and I know both. We were on different ponds, but we were playing pond hockey nonetheless. It's best form of hockey. I
It
will
is.
die on that hill every time.
Yeah. And the weather's supposed to be still cooperative through this week and this weekend, so maybe there's some more. Because I remember last year we only got one day in. Not
Yeah.
cold enough around these parts that often.
This year it is much colder, which I love. I just
Yeah,
don't like the
great.
snow annoys me because I'm like now I've got to shovel off the ice and
Yeah,
that's
then the
less
ice quality
fun.
gets bad, but it's the trade-off.
I was at Chandler Pond in Brighton on Sunday because the Only in Boston Twitter account had posted it on Saturday.
Saw that.
And
We almost went there.
yeah, and Saturday I was busy. I was at Milton and Tilton, which we can talk about for a bit. But I went to Chandler the next day and it was packed. There probably were like 12-ish different like games going at the same time, different sheets.
Sheesh.
Nobody fell through, which was nice. But it was uh it was just packed with little kids, with uh younger kids, middle-aged kids, adults, us. Like it was great. It was a fun time. And I know you were in Arlington, right?
Arlington Reservoir. So they got like the big reservoir, and then they have like this. They call it Little Res if you're an Arlington guy.
I'm not.
Um, but it's like a swimming area in the summer, and they control the levels and stuff. But freezes enough for hockey, and we had a big enough sheet to ourselves, and wasn't as busy as we thought it would be. So
That's
that was
awesome.
nice, steady
That's
if you
great.
want to say. But
Yeah.
yeah, we had our
It
own little sheet to ourselves.
I grew up on a reservoir in Framingham, and that thing they would control the levels of, and I'd get nervous because sometimes in the summer or the fall it would go very low, and I'm like, all right, we need enough to at least skate. And during the winter, there's always if it's cold enough, it freezes over, and it's great. So yeah, pond hockey this time of year is great. I know coaches aren't huge on their players jumping on the pond. We recorded the TV show on Monday that'll be out later this month, and John Missouri was on it, and he was like, "Yeah, I tell the kids no pond. Try to make sure the tempo's up, and I hate when I see my kids on the pond." So I think I still went on. I still played pond hockey through high school. Maybe that's why I stopped playing after high school. Maybe that was what did me in.
Too many
Um,
dull skate blades.
that's right. That's right. But an interesting weekend or last week of hockey, which is great. We can kind of go through as we normally do. We'll start with boys prep because I think there was a lot of action over the last week. I think that impacted the top 10, impacted now USHR has the Elite Eight or sort of the playoff seedings as of today and as of going forward. I know we'll get into that with the girls too. Um, I went to Rivers Governors on Friday, and then I went to Milton and Tilton. I hadn't seen Tilton yet this year on Saturday. Both good games. A tie. I hate ties. Anyone who knows me knows I despise it. Keep playing OT. Do 3-on-3. Don't do a shootout, but just do 3-on-3 forever.
That's my thing. Like, every rule book is the same, but I don't know, 5 minutes of 5-on-5 isn't solving anything.
No, never.
We had this, what was it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, before the NCAA changed from 5 minutes of 5-on-5 to now 3-on-3, thank God. But
Yeah,
just
it's
better.
ridiculous.
Even if you do four
Yeah,
on four, it's better.
I'm with you. Yeah, I like the idea. Do 1-on-1. Best guy against best guy.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
King of the ice.
Yeah, I think you got to play it smarter. Just breakaway after breakaway. But I say 3-on-3. Do 3-on-3 until someone scores, and if it gets past like 10 minutes, do 2-on-2. Make it interesting. I don't know. You have really good players out there. It's the same with the MIAA with the shootouts. I hate that. Just keep doing 3-on-3. Someone will score eventually. They always do. So boys prep. I did my top 10 this week. Top 5 got a complete overhaul.
Whoa.
Dexter played Brunswick in a back-to-back over the weekend, which I love. They're going to start doing this every year. So next year it'll be Brunswick at Dexter that Friday and Saturday. And I think it's great. I wish more teams would do this. I think for them, they're both independents. But I just love the idea of it. If you're a college coach in that Brunswick area, like Connecticut, New York, like I think Saturday's game was at 1. So it's an easy one to get to. It wasn't easy for me to get to. I didn't go to it. So a 3-hour drive. That's a tough sell. But I think it's great for college coaches. And when it's up here in Boston, your Hockey East schools, your ECAC schools in the area can come watch. Atlantic, all that stuff. Division 3. So I love the idea. I hope more teams can adopt it or find a way to do it where you have back-to-backs with the same team. Also just enhances the game because guys are way more pissed off on Saturday after the game on Friday. We see this at every level. Dexter won both. Fairly handily. At least the scoreboard says so. So to me, Dexter's not my number 1 team in the region, and they were
Yeah.
our cover team. So they've, knock on wood for them, they've overcome the curse. They've overcome that little curse we always joke about. But I still think Dexter's the top offensive team in the region. I felt that way preseason. I feel that way now. USHR has them as the number 1 team in the Elite 8 if it started today. To me, they're number 1 right now. I think they're so good offensively. Kyle Reedy and Colin Davis have been strong in net. They're good on D. I wonder if this is the year for Dexter.
I don't want to say anything about the Jinx because
Might have just done it.
the Jinx didn't get Cushing until the very last game of the season.
Yeah, and I will also say, Cushing, to their credit, was the best team all year that year. It was them
Yeah.
and Avon.
No,
So,
I'm just messing with
it's
you.
a championship game. I'll give
It
myself
is.
that.
No, but
That
yeah,
was a different story last year.
I mean, because we looked at it going into the holidays and everything was Brunswick as the team to beat, and then Dexter comes out here and makes a big statement. I don't, no doubt they'd be the number 1 after that.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have Chudzinski with 21 points in 12 games. You got Nate Porter and Noah Servilis, who are both producing at a high rate. Sean Leach, Miles Brosnan's over a point per game as a defenseman. They have guys. They've got guys all over that lineup,
Yeah.
and they're deep. And you see it when the playoffs come around. Depth matters. Although Kimball Union last year kind of just won based off their top line, but depth matters. And they're older. They have a lot of 07s. They have some 06s. Sean Leach is an 05. And that stuff matters come the playoffs and come the Elite 8. So to me, usually it's hard to put a day school up with those Kimball Unions and Cushings and your boardings. Brunswick consistently puts themselves in that mix. But I think Dexter's right there too. I'd love to see Dexter and Brunswick play a 7-game series. I also think for Brunswick, tough to get swept, tough to lose both, but they're a young team, a relatively young team. They'd been rolling up to that point. I think it's good to kind of get punched in the mouth in early January because you learn from that and guys learn how to play out of that. And I think they're going to have a couple games coming up to sort of build their confidence and get themselves ready for what should be a tough February. But I think both teams are fine. I have Brunswick at 4 still. So I don't have them completely falling out of it. They're only 4. And I think they're 4 actually in the playoff seedings right now for the Elite 8 as well. So interesting series. I think those were the 2 biggest matchups of the weekend. And that was Dexter and Brunswick. So good for them for starting that up. I hope that other teams take notice.
Other one to watch in your latest top 10, Thayer, all the way up to 7. A lot of offense for that team right now.
Yeah. So Thayer's been a really, I would say surprise, but I got to give myself a little pat on the back. Back in the summer when I do my midsummer, way too early look at prep, I know I noted them as a team that people should keep an eye on. I don't remember what I ranked them at the beginning of the year because I did do like an 11 through 25 ranking, but I'm almost positive they were definitely higher up in that. 10-4 right now. Well, they've won 4 in a row. Their losses have all come to good teams. They lost St. George's open the year. They lost to Phillips Andover in early December. And then recently they lost to Holderness and Dexter. So all good teams they're losing to. Which again, like, I don't know if that keeps them out of the Elite Eight come the end of the year and keeps them sort of as a high large school seed. But you're right. They're getting offense from everywhere. Mason Shea, a senior 05, 16 points. Michael Federico and Tommy Wilkinson, 208s, who, have always been guys that people have talked about, especially Federico, and they're, paying dividends at the prep level, which I think is huge. Both have 15 points. Tommy Anderson, senior 07, 15 points as well. Matthew McDonald's been a breakout guy on D, 13 points in 14 games. And Ty Heimovitz has been a really good addition, son of the head coach, David Heimovitz, 11 points in 14 games. So they've been getting production. They've been without one of their top defenders in 08, Brian McFadden, who was with CM last year, really good defenseman. He's been out. So that they've been able to string together, a really good strong stretch, I think is impressive. You got Tyler Maschella and Quinn Devin and net, both juniors, junior 07. So they're rolling. They're rolling right now. I'm really curious to see what they can do in the Keller. They have a big game coming up on Wednesday night against Belmont Hill. They have Cushing next Wednesday. And then they get into sort of, more and more ISL Keller games. So they're a team to watch. I'm very curious because we see this, Pat. You see this on the girls' side too. Teams 6 through 10 will often come in and out. Phillips Andover was 5 right after the holiday break. They moved to they're out. They're like 11 or 12 right now. They're outside the top 10. Teams move around. I'm curious if Thayer can like stay, if they can just sort of plant their flag somewhere in that 7 or 5 to 10 range and just stay there. They have the talent to do it. It just comes down to how they handle their matchups going forward.
Do you want to know where you had Thayer in your next 15?
Oh, God. Where did I have Thayer in my next 15?
Guess.
14?
No. 22.
Oh, no. Oh, damn it.
You did.
Well, at least they were in it.
You did call your shot with Michael Federico, though. You said breakout 08 to watch this season will be forward Michael Federico.
Bingo.
Add 08 defenseman Brian McFadden as a breakout, too. Obviously, haven't seen him in a bit, though.
I was busy at that time. I was so busy that I must have meant to do 12 instead of 22. But yeah, I mean that again, they're in the mix. They should be in the mix. And it's good for them that they're in that. So yeah, they're team to watch in the top 10.
And then if you want to get into the Elite Eight seeding from USHR right now, we know Dexter's 1 right now.
Yep.
In the mix as well. I don't know if this is in order. Avon, Berkshire, Brunswick, St. George's, Holderness, KUA, and St. Mark's.
That is the exact order. So I find this interesting. Obviously, USHR always has this right. So I'm not doubting the statistic. I'm not doubting the analytics or the numbers they have. Their algorithm works. It works every year. Kimball Union at 7, I find surprising. I have them at 3. I think they're one of the top 3 teams in the region. Even if they lose some games, I still think they are a top 3 caliber team. They're deep. They're good in net. Like, I think right now it would be Avon, KUA in that first round. Like, I would probably take KUA in that. And again, we're so far away from like any of this, so we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I think KUA, if they ended up being a lower seed in the Elite Eight, would do some real damage. Props to Berkshire, man. Like Kevin Sepiel in a year and a half span has them going from being, a middle of the pack team to, they were in the large school playoff last year, made some noise. Now they're in the Elite Eight hunt. They're number 3. They've been really good. They're 12-2-0. I think I have them at 9 or 10 right now, or 8. I have them in the bottom. And I think a lot of people would probably disagree with that. My whole thing is that, of late, they lost to Avon and Nobles, so I kind of have to keep them lower. But they could easily rise up. They've been getting production from everywhere. Duncan Thompson, a senior 06 uncommitted. He's got 23 points in 14 games, which is bananas. Matt Lacombe has been terrific, 19 in 14. In net, Kyle Bolduc's been really, really good. So, like, they're in it. I see them probably staying in that Elite Eight race. I wonder if they continue to rise in my top 10. St. Mark's, props to them. I always get crap for not putting them in the top 10. I did, I think, 1 week and then they fell out. It's competitive at the bottom there. Um, but St. Mark's is another one that's been really good, kind of quietly just doing work in the Eberhard. I think as they play St. George's and Rivers over the next 2 months, I think they'll kind of get the respect that they deserve. Which, by the way, I'm the one that would give it. So I'm like talking to myself here. No, Justin Brisebois has been outstanding in net for them. Son of Julian Brisebois, the GM of Tampa Bay. So Justin's been phenomenal. Really, really, really good senior year for him, which is awesome to see. And I think they're another team that's going to be in that mix. And, again, if they fell into the small school bracket, that small school is really good. Cushing's the #1 seed in the small school right now. Tilton there as well. Rivers, Frederick Gunn. So, I think the small school in past years has been a little weaker. I think this year, actually, it could be really strong. So, that's kind of my early thoughts on the playoff seedings. We're going to do this probably every week. So I don't want to
Yeah.
wait. I don't want to waste too much on this.
Yeah. Right now in the large school, Thayer, #1 seed.
That's right.
Other than that, in boys prep, Everett Baldwin joining the NTDP for the weekend, had an assist and the All-American game too on Thursday.
Yeah, he'll be there. It was a late addition. A good, smart move by them. He's actually on a team with 3 other New Englanders: Richard Gallant, Teddy Mutrin, and Caden Harrington. So they will battle for NHL scouts' eyes. Good for Everett Baldwin going and playing with the NTDP this past weekend. Very well deserved. We saw Ryan Chudzinski do that earlier this year. Makes sense. I mean, again, Baldwin, I would say, is one of the 6, 7 best players in prep. Should be a shoe in to be drafted come the draft in June. So he fit in well. Again, like, had a nice assist, behind the back secondary assist. I didn't get to watch his games, so I can't tell you, how he looked, but from everybody I talked to, they said he did well. So really happy for him. Again, I think he actually, right before we started recording, the NHL Central Scouting midterm rankings came out, which are always very interesting to track. Only 6 New Englanders made it compared to
Ooh.
18 last year. So I know a lot of people are going to go, "Oh my God, that's not good." And yeah, I mean, that's not that's not amazing. But I'd also push back on that because I think only 5 of those 18 last year actually got picked. And I would say of the 6 this year, I would say 4 likely get picked because Carter Amico's a second round candidate. Teddy Mutrin, second round candidate. Everett Baldwin goes 4th round candidate. Caden Harrington, 4th round as well. Alex Donovan from Darien, Connecticut, 6th round candidate. And Richard Gallant got put in the 7th round, which that was my biggest kind of like, not issue, because those Central Scouting guys do a phenomenal job. So I'm not like, but I'll disagree with some of where some players are.
Hmm.
Gallant's the second leading point getter on the national development team. And I get that he's 5'8". I get that. I get that scouts hold that against kids. It's hard to take a kid who's 5'8". But he's producing against the best of the best. And I think there's something to be, he's producing against college teams. I think he's going to fit in really well at Harvard next year. I don't know. I don't know if he gets picked, but I would put him higher than a 7th round candidate. Like, I would give him earlier consideration.
Yeah, it's kind of the same argument you made for, I don't know, someone like Jack Sadowski last year, where
Yeah.
maybe people have cooled off on kids straight out of prep, but the production is the production. At some point, you can't ignore it.
I know, and that's the thing. And I think with Gallant, it's even more prevalent because it's like, all right, this is coming in junior, this is coming against
Yes.
college teams, and so I don't know. I mean, his compete is so high. I do wonder if scouts look at him and say that's probably a college free agent, sort of like a Bobby Trevino a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But I just think to produce like this against talent like that, there's more to it, and so I would do I think he gets drafted? I don't know, because again, the height always goes against kids. But I'd have a tough time in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round not being like, we should take this kid. He's a leader for that national team. He's high producer, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in the All American game this Thursday. Not that's the be all end all, but yeah, that's the end of boys prep stuff. Well, that's sort of the latest in boys prep, and now we go on to girls prep. It's been a top 3 remain the same for you this week. But I think the biggest story to me is Williston's just kind of running the table.
Yeah, like a buzzsaw. Because I'm working on my rankings right now. I was in the middle of it before we jumped on. Um, and like the biggest thing is like they're dominating and they're dominating good teams. Like they shut out Cushing. Like Cushing's only losses this year have been against Williston. So Cushing's kind of in a like I guess I'll kind of get into them now, but they're in a spot where some of the teams that have jumped into the top 10 this week that we'll get into, like, you know, kind of entering like prove it territory. Like, all right, you're kind of beating up on the lower end teams. Now let's see you do it against the better teams. Cushing has obviously fallen short against Williston. It wasn't very competitive last Monday down at St. George's. It was a 5-0 loss. Um, but for Williston to, and Cushing's a good team. Like they've gotten it done and they've won the teams they're supposed to, won the games they're supposed to win, and they're high flying offensively right now. And for Cushing or Williston to pretty much neutralize all of that in a game and beat them for the second time this season was really impressive. They followed it. That was after they beat Rivers, who's having a nice start to their season, 5-1. They go and beat Tabor 3-0, and Tabor isn't what they might have been last year or the year before, but still a good team. Um, so just really impressive, and like Nora Curtis, Violet Carroll, Mia Daly are all, they're kind of filling the score sheet the most, but you look down the roster and everybody is sort of contributing meaningfully. It's not like everybody, like those three have super high point totals and everybody has like 3 goals and 4 points or whatever. Like it's meaningful contributions throughout. And I think the most impressive thing was like diving into Olivia Farabee's box scores of like how much like just save totals for the last 3 games. Like, she got pulled after the second period against Cushing. River Grady went in and finished the shutout, but even then, still only faced 12 shots in the first 2 periods. I think she only faced 14 against Rivers, 14 against Tabor, something like that. So they're not giving up many shots at all either. And that was one of the things that stood out at Harrington was just how much play is kept to the outside and nothing is happening in the middle of the ice for opposing teams against Williston.
Yeah, it just feels like, as you said, they're a buzzsaw right now. And I think, this is something we've talked about a little bit this year. It feels like they're sort of kind of getting revenge for last year and not
Yeah.
following that up. And sort of trying to follow it up this year.
I
You
mean,
have
you
Deck.
look at sorry to cut you off. You look
No,
at
don't
like
worry about it.
their last X Games before, from December
X
21st.
Games. They're doing skateboarding and,
From
and skiing and
they
all that.
they've given up 3 goals in 8 games since December 20th. They
Yeah, I mean,
have
that's ridiculous.
5 shutouts in that span. And they shut out Nobles, they shut out BB&N, obviously shut out Tabor and shut out Cushing. So again, they're doing this against very good teams.
Yeah. And to me, like, if you can keep that up, their big thing will be keeping it up.
Yes.
I think that's probably their biggest thing is like making sure that they, are still playing their best hockey come February.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Nobles thing last year where they're undefeated and you're getting to the playoffs and there's some kind of rocky close call ties in there. Just, it's a matter of, get me to the playoffs and, it just like we said, keeping this level throughout.
Yeah, and that'll be big for them. And then you got Dexter still at 2, you got Loomis at 3, I believe. Wildly enough, and I think you'll get into this with both of these teams, Nobles falls out of the top 5 after a loss to Dexter.
Nobles out of the top 5 right now. It's still not finalized. I think they'll be out of the top 5 no matter what,
Oh,
whether it's
okay.
like six,
You're
six
literally,
or
people realize you're writing this, like we
yeah.
record this as you're writing this.
Yeah, I
It's weird.
wanted to have it done before the pod, but I've been waffling so much from like 6 to 10 on like what I want to do there. I think
You don't do
Nobles.
what I do and just throw stuff at a wall and go, all right, okay, that hit Andover, Andover's 10. That hit Rivers, Rivers is 9. You don't do
Well,
that?
I'm definitely overthinking because the 2 teams that come in, I think you could make just as strong a case of why they shouldn't be in. But the 2 teams that fell out probably shouldn't be in right now either, because it's the what have you done for me lately that we always say. But yeah,
Those
Nobles.
parents are going to be lighting up the subtext. That's
I
for
know,
damn sure.
I
By the way, if
know.
you have not gone and subscribed, make sure to subscribe. We try not to do more than like a couple a week. Just sending texts to alert you of big stories that are out, rankings, top performers. Also, Pat, I don't know if I've told you this. We're considering using the subtext to get people's opinions for stories.
Oh,
Not like on players, but best jerseys, best rinks, worst rinks, best rink food. I think it'd be an interesting thing. Parents
I mean,
are out
we
and
do our
about.
coaches surveys. We could do fan survey.
fan survey, subtext survey. So make
Yeah.
sure to go subscribe over there because I don't know when that'll probably be end of the season, maybe spring. But yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. We're gonna get some
Yeah.
angry ones back, but that'll be good. Maybe we'll include those too. I like
Yeah,
those.
I mean, we got to spice it up. You had your Bizarro World MIAA, and
That's right. We haven't even
Dan,
talked about that.
yeah, Dan Gutton playing on baseball said good idea. I'm going to steal that. I said good idea. I'll steal that for girls over the summer.
That's
Um,
right. That's
yeah,
right.
but back to the matter at hand. Nobles at best 6, at worst 8 for me this week, and it's again like not what I think Nobles will be at the end of the season. They are a top 5 team in my book, like for the balance of the season, but it's like, what have you done for me lately? Um, and you lose to Wilson going into the break. We did rankings already off of that, but then you come out, you blow a 3-0 lead to Dexter, and then you come back, you beat up on Hotchkiss, which you should do, and then you have a nice 3-1 win at Kent, and Kent's a good team this year. So again, good bounce back from the win at Dexter. It was just Nobles had that game. Like Dexter had nothing going until Devin Moore scored with like a minute left in the second. And then they come out in the third, and Dexter's kind of owning the third period. They tie it, they win in overtime. Nobles had some really good chances to end it in overtime too. But, they'll be fine. Annika Jonas has been really good in net. We've talked about their young defenders a lot already. Someone I think who we haven't talked about as much in that group is Francie Ames, who was there last year. She's versatile, can play both positions, forward, defense. But she's been really good, I think, in all situations for Nobles so far this year. And the biggest one, sort of for me, is, you know, like they have their senior leaders, Callie Brown, Molly McCurtain, Greta Hulbig, and Rachel Zauer having great junior seasons. But it's that next younger crop of forwards we've talked about with Catherine McCool and Lily Bromley. Alexa Georgantis, and again, I probably butcher her name every time. Um, but just having an awesome season, and like, I'll mention Mia McDonald with Rivers, but two players who get better every time I've seen them, whether it's in club in the fall and summer and now this season. And with Noble, she can really impact the game with her skating. She's fast, quick on pucks, in good positions, and she's making a really good impact on the top line with McCurtain and Brown. So definitely a player to watch going forward there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have Nobles potentially falling out of the top
I
five.
mean, falling out of the top 5, it'll probably be like 6, and it's like, oh, not that big of a deal. But
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think they're a team that ends up being in the top five coming
yeah,
into
and,
the
and
year.
the teams ahead of them do warrant being in the top 5. Dexter still at 2, Loomis is doing their thing. They've just kind of been steady. They haven't had a huge high, they haven't had a huge low. And BB&N came out of the break with a big win over New Hampton, I believe. So that brings them back up from 6 to 5, and their one loss this season was to Williston, and Williston is the be all end all right now.
Yeah, and so what else in the top 10 are you focused on? I mean, you've got Rivers and Exeter now in your top 10. You Groton and New Hampton fall out. What do you like? What's catching
Yeah,
your attention?
yeah. I think one thing we have to watch, you mentioned Thayer on the boys' side. Thayer on the girls' side, still one of 3 undefeated teams. I think they move up to 7 this week for me.
Hmm.
Um, and like we've talked about before on this podcast, where going into the season, you wonder about the depth around who else is going to get it done around Morgan McGathy and Kate Sullivan, and they've been getting it done around them. Rena Bood has been really good this year. Abigail DeRove and Emerson Fisher Bailey, 2 young blue liners. That had solid years last year, but have seemed to really be taking off this year. And in net, they've both goalies have been really strong so far, so they're one to watch as well. Andover is finding their groove, even though they didn't have the Averill sisters, who were off at the U18s. That's another thing about Dexter. Didn't have their top center in Evelyn Doyle. Didn't have
That's
their top
right.
shutdown D in Elena Dunn, and pulled out that win at Nobles. Another overtime win at Milton. Again, the undefeated streak is kind of on the teetering right now with a couple of overtime wins, but undefeated is undefeated. Um,
They don't play Williston this year, do they?
they
Dexter.
do in a couple weeks.
Ooh, where? At
Yeah,
Dexter or Williston?
I think it's at Dexter.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That's a game.
I will have to double check. Other than that, Andover, like we said, couple blowout wins recently. They're finding a groove. And then Rivers and Exeter come in. two teams that have been pretty high flying. Like, Exeter is getting good scoring, good goaltending. They took their first loss last week to Cushing. Rivers, their first line has been really good with Brooke Bartlett, um, Simone Burns, and I'm blanking on the left winger there, or the right winger. And
It's all right.
but the
You just
offense
offended.
has been.
You just ruined her
I just
whole week.
offended the
There you
entire
go.
family.
There you go. You're
The
done.
offense has been really good, but when they've gone quiet, it's like when the offense hasn't come for Rivers, it's been sort of those games where, they're losing a 3-1 or, a 5-1 to Williston rather than kind of hanging in it. Um, Both of those teams, I think, do have some pretty big, prove it stretches coming up, where I you want to see it against some of the better teams. I think Dexter, this is in order, but they got Nobles at some point coming up, or not Dexter, Rivers, excuse me. They got Nobles at some point coming up. Dexter might be in there, a big stretch for Rivers coming up. And then Groton and New Hampton fall out. New Hampton had a nice blowout win over Middlesex to start the new year, but they were 1-3-1 in their last five going into the break. They struggled at the Watkins tournament, and before that, losing to Thayer. Groton, they start after they beat New Hampton at the Watkins. They kind of stumbled too. They're 1-2-2 since then. And they've been out without Tina Scalise, so that's a factor too. But yeah, two teams that again I think will be better by the end of the season. But as we always say, what have you done for me lately?
That's the key. I think people need to realize with these with the top tens, it's very
It's
much
a
what have you done for
snapshot.
me lately. Yes, it is not what we predict the end of the season is going to look like. It is a snapshot of what's happening at the current moment, and what's happening at the current moment in the Elite Eight for girls. No surprise, Williston's at one, but I find it interesting who's at two. Who's at
Yeah,
two,
I
Pat?
well, I am a little thrown off by the USHR projections right now because they have Andover at 5-2-1. They're 6-1-1. Um,
Is that or because some of those games might not be NEPSAC eligible?
well, I'm
That
going
might be
off.
why.
My 6-1-1 is going off of that girlsprephockey.us site that the
Okay, all right. So they have
NEPSAC does
different.
run,
Okay, they have different
or the Coaches
stuff.
Association runs, whoever runs it. So yeah, Andover 6-1-1, 5-1-1 officially in Nepski hop play, the Coaches Association. Um, but anyways, it's close enough in these projections, and they're going to change and things update, things change, whatever.
I was gonna say these are going to
Um,
be very different come the end of the
yeah,
year. It's not
yeah.
going to be these right
Anyways,
now.
Elite Eight, you go. Wilson at one, like we said. Thayer, number two.
Boom.
Thayer sneaking into the large school last year was their first tournament, I think, since 2020.
Wow.
Dexter at three, BBN at four, large school champs. Dexter, large school runners up last year. Cushing didn't even make the playoffs last year at five, at 12-2. Exeter at six, 7-1. Loomis Chafee at seven, 8-1-1, and Rivers at eight, at 8-3-0.
Rivers at eight is big. That's
Yeah,
an interesting one. I also think it's interesting because like BB&N won they won the small school last year, correct? Or the large
large school,
school.
yes.
They won the large school. And I always get asked this question. I think we've discussed this, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on it today. But like, what's bigger, getting in the Elite Eight and losing, or winning in the large or small school? And we've definitely talked about this. And I think it's a tough one because you want to win a trophy, you want to win a championship. That's what matters most. But there is something to be said, like, oh, they're an Elite Eight team. Like I remember in the boys, Ryan Shaw like helped carry Westminster to an Elite Eight seeding a couple of years ago. And like, would they have done better if they were in, I forget if they're in the large or small school? Like, yes, they would have. But like, I think it's cool that like, all right, they got in the Elite Eight one year. That's pretty awesome, to be one of those eight teams. So I don't know. I think it's
Yeah,
a debate that's a debate question for the subtext.
it is.
That's a question
And
for
it's
the
one it's
parents
one I don't have an
and the
answer
fans.
for because as much as I'd be like, oh, you want to win a trophy, but it's like, all right, you're not one of the best eight teams though, at least according to the math.
I go
Uh,
by this. What do we talk about more? The Elite Eight or the smaller large school
the Elite
tournaments?
Eight, that's
We
true.
talk about the Elite Eight the most, and that's what we talk about throughout the year the most. And I think people realize that's probably the biggest.
Yep.
MIAA. Let's dive into that. Boys MIAA first. You mentioned the fantasy story, which that got a lot of reaction. Interesting reaction. A lot of people reached out saying they liked it. Some people thought it was not great, which like you're all entitled to your own
I
opinions.
think there
That's
was some
okay.
missing of the mark too,
Yes. By me or by the people?
by some reaction out there.
Yeah, I didn't some people I saw some people say it was disrespectful, and I don't follow that, because I tried
No,
my
it was just
best. Yeah, I
Like,
tried my best in the stories not to be like, oh, this person would come in and replace this person on this team. Like that would be messed up. I'd be
yeah,
pissed
this
about
other
it.
kid cut. Sorry,
Goodbye.
make
Get ready
room
to
for
learn
Teddy
JV,
Mutrin.
buddy. Yeah, like I'm not saying that, and I don't mean that like that. I just mean like
Yeah,
imagine if this was sort of like the Minnesota model, where like kids stayed and played for their high school. Like I think that'd be really
yeah.
interesting if
It's
Dover Sherborne had like Will Bent. Like, that'd be cool.
yeah, it's
That's
like
it.
I don't know if you are talking about this at your local watering hole with your buddies, but it's just like, what
If you
if? It's
are,
like,
thank you.
yeah, it's just like throwing crap against the wall. Like, you imagine if Casey and Teddy Mutrin played for Norwell. Imagine.
That's
Like
it.
it's just
And I
that. That's
and
that.
I think
Just having
there's
fun.
also yeah, and I think there was some reaction of sort of it doesn't necessarily mean that some of the kids mentioned would make the team. And I tried my best not to insinuate that, but I would also say if a kid is consistently playing in prep, I have a tough time not thinking they would do okay, at least okay in the MIAA. Like, and I don't mean that as a disrespect thing, but like if a kid is a third line center in prep, like my guess is he would probably go back to his hometown in the MIAA and play regularly. Like I watch both. You watch both on the girls' side. I watch both on the boys' side, and like that's just how it is. Prep is a better level of hockey than the MIAA, not by a ton. There are lots of great players in the MIAA. I was an MIAA player. I played in the MIAA. I love the MIAA. I'm not trying to disrespect it. I'm just saying that's how it is. But
Yes.
yeah, this I thought it was an interesting thing. I had
No,
fun
it was
writing
fun.
that. I had fun
Back to the
doing that.
point. It was fun, lighthearted,
Yeah, and that's the thing.
not
Like
too serious.
we do a lot of power rankings this time of year. We do a lot of top performers and standouts from games. It's fun to get out of that and do something a little bit different. And that's what that was. But in the real world, in the real boys MIAA, the MIAA came out with their power rankings. They came out with girls, they came out with basketball, all the winter sports. No surprise to me, Pope Francis #1. I don't I see them as like the clear cut #1 right now. I don't see a team that's better. I have not seen a team that's better. I've not seen every top 10 team yet, but I have not seen a team that's better than them right now. MIA also has Reading at 2, which I think is really interesting. I have not seen Reading yet. That's a team I do obviously want to see. 6-1-1. They've been taking care of business. Mark Doherty before the year was saying that that they'd be a contender, and they clearly have been. They have Arlington coming up soon, which will be a really big game. I have Arlington and Hingham still at 2 and 3. They've both, been. I think I thought they were the two best publics. I thought Arlington and Hingham were the two best publics that I had at least seen so far. But Reading also beat St. John's Prep, which I think is why they're so high in the power rankings. So again, they're in the mix with Arlington and Hingham clearly as well. One team I think's been gotten a big boost of late is CM. CM got a huge win over Zavarian recently. They lost to Arlington, but I must say they outplayed them for the majority of the game. It was a classic like public school win over a private school. I think the story with CM is, they have a lot of young forwards who are highly skilled, who are, finding their way, making their mark. And I think that's sort of been CM's calling card the last couple of years, where they have these good, young, skilled forwards. And then they have an eighth grader in net, Jackson Nelson, eighth grader, 2010, has
Sheesh.
been phenomenal, phenomenal. And that's a testament to how good he is, which is awesome. I also think it's a testament to just the MIA is a little younger. Every level's younger. I mean, 10 years ago, would an eighth grader be starting for a power like CM? Probably not. And that's not at him. That's just the way the league is now. And kids leaving early, and that's a whole nother debate of whether that's good or bad. But it's opened the door for an eighth grader like Jackson Nelson to come in and play phenomenal hockey. And I think he's boosting his stock. CM's got the guy in net for, I'm assuming Larry Rooney hopes for quite a few years. And what I also think is interesting with him, and I did a story on goaltending where I talked to a lot of big goalie minds around the region and around the country, was sort of you need to go where you're going to play. And that's the biggest thing, reps in net. And he's getting reps in net. He's playing every game, if almost every game, if not every game. And that's going to be key for his development. Like being an everyday guy in the MIAA as an eighth grader is huge. And so I don't know what he's going to do in future seasons. I assume prep schools are going to start banging down the doors at some point. What I would tell him, like my free advice would be, if you're going to leave, make sure you are the starter wherever you're going. Like,
Yes.
because you're the guy at CM, and that's a big deal as an eighth grader. So go where you're going to play if you're going to leave. Don't just leave to leave. And I think, when you look at sort of the track record of goalies leaving prep early too, like that's not a sure thing. That's a rocky road. So stay where you're having success. That's my biggest thing. Like CM, he's having success at. Stay at CM for a good long time. That would be my 2 cents of free advice. Well, 2 cents, I guess, isn't free. Um,
No, you're
uh,
giving him 2 cents.
that's right. I guess, yeah, I'm giving him 2 cents. There we go.
I've never thought about that saying, but
I don't either. I'm saying it a lot now. I don't really think about it that much. Biggest game of the weekend. St. John's Prep took down St. John Shrewsbury. St. John Shrewsbury had kind of been rolling, lost 4-2. St. John's Prep is a team that, again, a lot of new faces. We've talked about this in different parts of the lineup. And good for them for getting a win like that. They rank 5 in the MIAA power rankings. I believe I had them at, I think I ranked them prior to that game. So I don't think it's super relevant to this, but I had them at 6. So not far off. I had St. John's right behind them at 7. So that's kind of the MIAA boys right now. I think the parity is very clear. I still think Pope is clearly one. After that, it's very open. One team I do have my eye on is Zavarian. Zavarian struggled a little bit to start the year. Same thing as St. John's Prep. Lost a lot of kids, a lot of new faces. My guess, I wrote this. I think I wrote this about Zavarian or St. John's Prep recently. They're going to be playing their best hockey in February, which is when it matters. That's what happens when you have a team full of new guys, or guys in elevated positions who weren't in those positions last year. So, that's my take on the MIAA right now. I'm curious to see how the next couple weeks play out and how the rankings work and who, if anybody can take over for Pope. But that's where I am with Division One boys, MIAA.
yeah.
Let's do girls. Let's do girls right now. Hingham continues to dominate boys and girls. Hingham always is strong, so it's not a surprise, but both programs are humming right now, which is great.
Yeah, Hingham is 9-0-0, although they're not top in the Division 1 power rankings.
That's interesting. How is that?
I I think must be strength of schedule, probably. I
Huh.
don't, although they've played a good schedule.
Who's number one?
NDA is one at 4-1
Okay.
and 1. Um, NDA has beaten Duxbury. I think they've beaten Archie's, I believe, off the top of my head. They may not
So
have
that
played
would
yet.
do
Oh no,
it
they play
probably,
Archie's
right?
on
The
Wednesday.
four
I don't know if they've
wins.
played them already.
The four
Um,
wins are legit, all legit wins. I would assume that's why they're number
yeah,
one.
for the most part. I think if you look at like the body of work too, they've only given up 3 goals all season. Erin Kral's been really good in net. I think she has 3 shutouts. Um,
We
of
should have Jim Clark come on at some point and explain the power rankings. Honestly, like
yeah,
that's something we should do.
yeah. Um, but Hingham is humming. They've beaten MC twice. They're again beating good teams. They've beaten NDA, which is another thing. They have the head-to-head over NDA, so I don't know why Hingham is 2. Anyways,
I'm not understanding this at all.
I don't either. But Caroline Doherty, what else can you say? I think she's at 199 for career points. She had another goal yesterday
Ooh,
against Situate. She had a 4-point or a 3-point game against MC, something like that.
I'm not
Um,
gonna say it. I'm not gonna say congratulations or anything until she has 200. Not gonna
nope,
jinx it.
nope.
Nope.
Well, this is an aside, but my sophomore year at BU, end of the regular season, BU was in a great spot for women's hockey. Looked like they were going to get an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament no matter what. Abby Cook, who was a really good two-way defender at BU. I think she's still in the PWHL. She was at least recently. She was at 99 points. I did a story
Oh
and be like, I asked her because they had like
no.
5 games left. I asked her like she's top power play, and I asked her like what's it gonna be like for you, clips that mark, and she didn't. And they like choked against Maine in the quarterfinals, and they didn't make the
Oh.
tournament, and she was stuck at
Oh.
99 points. But I mean,
That
they had
is
like 5 games
brutal.
left, something like that. They had a bunch of power plays, and she's running the power play. They had a great team, and nothing. So
Ah.
wasn't for a lack of opportunity.
99. That's so heartbreaking to someone 99 points. Oh.
Yeah. Anyways, um, yeah, Caroline Doherty, matter of time. And then elsewhere in Division One power rankings, Methuen-Tewksbury's had a really great start to the season. So has Haverhill, Pentucket, North Andover. I think they're just going as North Andover in your scoreboards. Um, MC as well, they're fourth. Methuen 5, North Andover 3. Bishop Feion and Andover are also ones to keep an eye on. And Bill Rick at Chelmsford too. They only have one loss. That was to Methuen. So a lot again, like I think the top three in D1 are pretty separate. Even it's not top three exactly in the power rankings. It's Hingham, NDA, and MC. I think there's a pretty big group of teams in that next like 3 to 10 that are all like you got PBD in there. Archie struggled at the start. They've won 4 straight. There's a lot of teams jockeying for position there, and I think it's really deep field in D1 this year, where last year was kind of like, all right, St. Mary's, will anyone be able to upset them? Archie's almost
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And then D2, Westwood is over Duxbury. Westwood's 9-0-1. Duxbury, I believe, is 5-2-1. Then you have Nauset at 4, Auburn at 3, 7-0-3. Woburn and Falmouth as well. Falmouth struggled at the start, but they're getting back on track, and their top line is so good. So and like their D2 is in a similar spot where I think Duxbury, just given their experience and the senior leaders that are getting it done on a game to game basis, where I would put them as the team to beat. But then after them, there's like 10 teams that I think all have a legit shot too. And like again,
To
they're all
take over, to take down those top teams.
yeah, just jockeying for position. And kind of what we'll say in prep is this next month is going to tell us a lot about that upper echelon of teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's an interesting it's a weird time because I think a lot of people look at this as the dog days, but I think this is where you sort of start to get little glimpses, both in prep and the MIAA, of who are going to be the teams that are at the top and who are going to be the teams that can upset those top teams come March.
For over 20 years, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey has been helping hockey players of all ages develop their individual skills and improve on all aspects of their game. Through structured drills and innovative training equipment, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey's intense on-ice instruction challenges each student to be the best at their ability. Find a hockey clinic or summer camp that is right for you today at nateshockey.com. That's Nates hockey.com. Eric Nate's Euro Hockey, train to be the best.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students can earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
I was at the Absolute Filth Hockey Wax website the other day, and I was wondering to myself what Absolute Filth's dragon's blood smells like. Is it fiery, or maybe it's sweet like the scent of victory after a triple overtime game? Probably a mystical aroma that'll magically make you dominate the ice. Knowing the folks at Absolute Filth, I bet it's part fierce dragon, part subtle smokiness, with a dash of awesomeness jammed into that giant puck of wax. Whatever it is, I'm definitely grabbing some dragon's blood for my next game. Gonna slap that wax on my stick and play with fire. Sorry boys, but the locker room's about to smell like a medieval fantasy tonight. Check out Dragon's Blood and more over at Absolute Filth's website, hockeywax.com. perfect for the holidays, and they've even got a 2-for-1 sale going on right now with free shipping. Awaken your inner dragon and rule the ice at hockeywax.com.
Interesting. We did our whip around. We did boys prep, girls prep, boys MIAA, girls MIAA, and now we do everyone's favorite part, overtime, with our great producer, David Yaz.
Yeah, I guess we have time for overtime. Let's do it.
Overtime.
The pageantry, the pomp, the circumstance of overtime, everyone's favorite segment, where I give 3 questions to both Evan and Pat, and kind of see what happens. This is going to be the overrated or underrated version of overtime. And question number 1, power plays. The importance of winning power plays to win hockey games. Is that notion overrated or underrated? Pat, I'll let you go first.
I think once upon a time I might have said overrated, but I think, I think it's underrated because we see how much the Bruins are struggling this year, and their power play is abysmal, where for like the last 6 years, it was pretty automatic. And I think we kind of took that for granted, and that was, when the Bruins were good and still contending. I think power plays are underrated.
Firmly stated, persuasive. Evan, your thoughts?
He nailed it. Underrated. Bruins are proving that right now. Bruins of 2011 proved that it was overrated.
Well,
but right now, I think it's underrated.
So I actually just thought of, while I was still at BSJ covering the Bruins, I did do a story, during that record-breaking season of, because the Bruins power play was really slumping at the end, and that was also part of their undoing. But we talk about 2011 as a punchline. Well, they didn't need it then, but I looked into the data, and you looked at the last 5 Cup teams or whoever, Tampa, and at the time it was Tampa, Colorado. I don't think Vegas had won yet. But all those teams had top 5 power plays and continued having top 5 power plays in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's important. And I think, again, if you're not getting 5-on-5 scoring at the rate you need to get it at, power play is just freaking vital. So that's underrated for sure.
All right, question number 2 for overtime. Overrated or underrated? Or we can add a third category, properly rated, if you want to be boring. But overrated or underrated, the President's Trophy. Evan, we'll start with you on this.
Overrated. It's the worst trophy in sports. I hate it. I think it's so dumb. I know I think it's in Premier League soccer, the champ is the team that is the best in the regular season, correct?
Yeah, there's no playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. We've grown up with playoffs.
You just win the league.
That's it. So maybe, the Bruins would have a million Stanley Cups if you just won the league. But overrated. It doesn't translate to anything really.
It's the only sport with such a designation, right, that I can think of, except for soccer, maybe, as you point out. But of the major American sports, we don't give anything to the team with the best record. Anyways,
I don't think so.
Pat, I'm going to guess you have a similar answer, but go ahead.
Very overrated. I'm with Evan. The curse, all that. I've seen it bring too many teams down, whether it's coincidence or not. Very overrated.
It sort of begs the question is why I think we all consider it overrated because we're all conditioned to the Stanley Cup. It's, first of all, it's the best trophy in sports, but also it's just, that's what you do. You got to align yourself for playoff hockey. It's the best. But it does provide an argument, a debate as to why. Why don't we? Why isn't the best team the team that plays? How many games do they play in hockey? I should know this.
82.
82. So after 82 games, shouldn't that determine who the quote unquote best team is, rather than much shorter playoff series?
Counterpoint. I think it shows that 82 is way too much.
That's another.
65, 70, 75 games. That's all you need. You don't need to play every team twice a year either. I want more. We talked about this before. I don't need 2 games against the Anaheim Ducks every year. 1 here, 1 there. I don't. I need 4, 5, 6 against the Canadians and the Atlantic Division teams, and then some others against Pittsburgh and all that.
Yeah.
I would go with Pat because I agree with you, Yaz. I think it is odd that 82 games don't really matter. They help you for playoff positioning, but they don't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. But I would go in the middle. I would fence it between you. I would still do an 82 game season, but I would do away with you have to play Western Conference teams twice. I would say it's sort of like in football where you pick you play one division every year in the other conference. I would do that, and I would just beef up the games against your division be so much better.
Yeah, that could be the
rivalries would be better and all that.
Yeah, that's probably the better solution if this is in fact a problem in search of a solution. With baseball, it's even more ridiculous. You play 162 games, and then you lose one series and you're out, even if you're the team after 162 games. Anyway,
and like scheduling too, like in like I don't know, saturation of the market and like fan appeal. Like you talk about dog days, like the punchline all the time is Tuesday night against the Anaheim Ducks. Like get rid of those, please.
I would also be like, I wouldn't be totally opposed to, as you said, Pat, shortening the schedule so that the games mean more.
Yes.
It's like football. Like,
yeah, and especially like you're like, oh, this isn't a total aside. I know we're holding things up, but you look at, the Bruins, that dominant season, and any team like Vegas this season, any team that is in that spot in like February 15th to April 15th, does not matter one single bit. You get into a lull. You're in a malaise by the time the playoffs come. And you also look at the Bruins, like this is a complaint we have every year, especially coming up to the playoffs, especially that big year where they're playing like every other day. They're playing 3 games and 4 nights routinely in the final 2 months of the season. Why? It's such a taxing sport to begin with. Why are you jamming in these games? You can just spread it out so much more and have a higher quality product, and your teams will be better for it in May and June.
And you'll have more star players because they won't be injured.
Yes.
So that'll also
Sorry,
be nice.
We're solving the world's problems right now.
Good.
We are. This is what people should care about.
Well done, guys. But you still have one more question for overtime, and this is it. Overrated or underrated, the tradition of the handshake line at the end of a playoff series. Overrated or underrated? Pat, you go first.
Properly rated.
Properly rated.
Properly rated. I think there's something to be said, for like not showing a guy up and unless you're Milan Lucic and Dale Weiss, being able to look someone else in the eye and just respect for playing a good hard fought best of 7 series. And a lot of times it's like the cliche like go get them or like go win it for us or whatever, but like I don't know, to pay that respect and also potentially lose to the team that goes and wins it all is have I don't know. I'm rambling, but you know what I mean.
I think we do. Evan, your thoughts?
It's nice, but it's overrated. It's a cool shine of respect, but when they like and when they start like tearing up over it on the broadcast and ESPN shows highlights of it, I'm like, all right, like it's cool, it's nice, but like they just tried to kill each other. Like I always
think it's really cool, like if it's an overtime winner or something, or like someone had a really crazy series and like they're either guys they have connections with on the other team or coaches or whoever. I think that's cool. Or like even if it's like an unsung hero getting like being the guy to win in overtime and like the other guys like paying giving them their due.
I think it's cool when a team wins a lot and then they finally lose. Like you look at like the Capitals beating the Penguins and it's sort of like, all right, like go win the cup now. Like that's cool, but there's so much oohing and ahhing over it that I don't know. Okay. No.
Boston Garden, old-time Boston Garden fans, not for the Bruins, but for the Celtics, famously chanted "Beat LA" as the Sixers were eliminating the Celtics in Game 7 at the Boston Garden. You guys are too young to remember that.
I don't. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's where "Beat LA" comes from. Anyway, that's not hockey, but this show has been a tremendous podcast of hockey, and you guys did admirably well on overtime. Congratulations. And back to you, Evan, to wrap things up today.
Yeah, that's it. We got a lot coming, Pat. We got a magazine that's dropping in a week or so. Got the TV show coming at the end of the month. And there's a lot coming. So you can stay tuned with us over at New England Hockey Journal. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Marinofsky. We will see you at the rink.